Welcome to How I Fucked Up. I am Executive Creative Director of Co-Casino Fujikado, Andrew Gall, where we talk to marketing leaders about mistakes that they've made and lessons that they've learned. I'm very excited to have a guest with me today in real life, which we don't usually get to do. So we had to kind of build a set and it's a whole thing, but it's great. This is Elizabeth Scott. She's SVP Global Business Lead for Team Microsoft at MRM, which is an IPG agency all around the world. And thank you for being here. Very excited to talk to you about your journey in marketing and mistakes and all the things.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really nice to be in an office because I am global. I'm in a remote role close here in Seattle to some clients. So nice to be here in person.
So do you ever go into the Microsoft office?
Yeah, about once a month.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's, they're not quite return to office either. So it's hit or miss, and it takes a lot of planning usually to get people all together. So yeah.
Yeah, I always see you. You're in like offices all around the world all the time. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, just want to start talking about like, how did you get from where you began? We were just talking about, we've been in the industry almost the same amount of years, 25 going on 26-ish. What was your journey like to where you are now, a big global lead SVP role from humble beginnings?
Well, I always like to say that, you don't usually choose advertising. Advertising chooses you. And I think there's something a little bit off with all of us that are into advertising in the first place. So I think you kind of find your people there. I actually started when I was in college and started working for an advertising agency in Reno in my home state of Nevada. My friend and roommate was a runner there, and her uncle worked at R&R Partners. And so I went in and got a job there and worked there for about 15 years. I actually moved back from Reno to Las Vegas, which is where I'm from, and worked at that ad agency for the 15 years in Las Vegas too. So while I was with R&R, I worked on a bunch of casino clients. Mandalay Resort Group is what it was called at the time, Caesars Entertainment, a lot of casino collateral, those kinds of sexy marketing materials that you do. And then I worked on Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, all the What Happens Here Stays Here work that you see. So was on that for about 10 years, which was great because I had the opportunity to work on the business side, on the convention side of things, product, which is what we would call like weddings, restaurants, dining, those kinds of things. And then I worked on the TV campaigns, all the What Happens Here Stays Here. And then, there comes a point when you're in a career where you're at the, biggest agency in the state right. that you work at as far as you can go. And so I started branching out into what at the time was like digital marketing, which was very, very new. I always like to say that I actually wrote a, Word doc of why we should do Facebook ads for clients for the city of Las Vegas and then put it on my personal debit card as a test. And that was, feels like a million years ago, but very, very fun to grow with a city that I believe in, which is a brand that I really believe in too. So I was there and then moved to Kansas City and worked at an advertising agency called Barkley, leading their Eurostar relationship. And then now moved here to Seattle 5 years ago and have been working with Microsoft with MRM. So I think if I was to sort of weave the pathway of how I got to where I am from, 15 years of an ad agency in Nevada, part of the way during working on Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, I started working on the international piece of business and just fell in love with that side of things. I loved working with new people. I loved working with different cultures and became obsessed with what your brand looks like in other places too, because, global consistency is key. So I think that was something that really intrigued me of how you can have your brand in 100 different markets and perceived 100 different ways. And it's your story to tell. So it's really important to make sure that it's crisp and consistent. So that really is what took me into the next phase of my career with Eurostar, where we were doing marketing to Americans on behalf of Eurostar. Mm. So we were the agency of record that was bringing, a European brand to Americans. And it became very clear to me, this is how I fucked up once.
Let's go.
We were hammering so hard of how Americans were different and how we needed to see things differently and proposing a lot of new design, a lot of new ideas that were contradictory to their brand standards. Mm. Then I went to their headquarters and sheepishly saw the branding, the illustrations all around the wall and thought, yeah, we're not our creative teams are just not listening to the feedback. And for, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right.
So that was a really good learning to be on the other side of, being dictated the brand versus the brand dictating to you.
Sure.
So I then moved over to work on Hill's Pet Nutrition at VML and was leading our global efforts there. So I was really at the core of making sure that all of our global markets were getting exactly what they needed. So whether that's brand assets, whether that's, videos to adapt, those kinds of things, making sure we have global consistency on strategies as well. So social, digital, websites, all that kind of stuff. And then worked on their first ever global brand campaign. So they were before just two brands that were just sitting underneath. I'm not saying this right. Hill's Pet Nutrition is the master brand, and Science Diet and Prescription Diet are the two sub brands. And so we create a master brand campaign for Hill's Pet Nutrition. I still see that in the world, which is great that they've continued that on. So, and then we moved here 5 years ago, and so I work with Microsoft now. I've been working about 4 years with them. Great clients, great teams. And with that, I lead a team of about 200 plus people that are globally, which is why you see me around the world going to different events and checking in on our teams around the world. And again, it's, global consistency and tying all of that together. So, yeah.
Amazing. Vegas tourism especially is, R&R did so much great work for so long, but that's like the crown jewel of tourism advertising.
Yeah.
Visit Seattle's our biggest client. And
yeah,
we repitched them last year and they consolidated with us. So we're doing more. So we're doing more on the convention side as well as influencing the global side, which is like, it's cool to get a peek into that this year because we launched a whole new campaign.
Yeah.
So I'm on with stakeholders in like Japan and, Germany and England and stuff like that. It's fascinating.
It's
it's really cool to see if you have a brand idea that can travel, like, and obviously there's maybe like some nuances that you need to make to change it, but it's pretty cool to see it like have that kind of impact at that type of scale.
It's very, very cool. I think when I was working on What Happens Here Stays Here, we would travel around and do focus groups and, mostly like Mexico and Canada at that time, some Brazil. But the part of the effort that the convention authority does is working with the airlines to attract, get airlines to get people into the destination. So that was a really fascinating glimpse into the business side of international marketing. We have hundreds of shows and dining and weddings and shopping especially for those markets too. So how do you fill a plane of 135 seats to come every 3 times a week with Copa Airlines, for example? So yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, and then I think too, you really have to understand the brand on a totally different level. One of the things that I think I've talked about this a lot with guests I've had, because maybe it's something that I've found that I've grown over my career and is getting to know the client's business in a way that I had never had before. And as a creative, obviously it's different than your side of the house. But how do you go about trying to even wrap your head around something when it's got that kind of scale to it?
Longevity, certainly. I've worked at agencies. This right now, I'm working with one single client, and with Las Vegas, I was working with one single client. But I've worked at agencies where I was working with multiple clients, and I didn't like that as much because I really do like to live and breathe my client's business. I like to get in there. I like to see them as partners. I like to be an extension of their team. That was very much Hill's Pet Nutrition. We were very much an extension of their team. And so I love that. I thrive in that. And, if you see something that's interesting for your client's business, it's you're in it with them. You're really in it with them. Makes it a lot easier to solve business problems when you see them as your own.
Totally. And so often I feel like the failure is when it becomes a game of telephone, whether it's to you or whether it's filtered down further stream.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, we don't actually understand what the business problem might be or what they're actually trying to do, and everyone just makes assumptions and it becomes no good.
Totally. And I think even from a creative to account and media, just everybody trying to solve the same business problems because they're so in tune with the client is key, because you might be bringing ideas that are cool, are interesting, are can worthy, are fill in the blank worthy, but it's not really solving the business problem
Yeah.
that the clients have. And they're, solving 1,000 other problems throughout the day. They're not thinking about the can award that you want to have on your shelf. So I think if you know the business, you can bring ideas that are more FE driven than, not that can's not, but
Totally.
Solving business problems is important.
Yeah, it's that FE is always like at Copacino. We haven't won one yet, but that's our gold standard. So I think it's when we look at awards that we're looking in the right place.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll come
Yeah.
for us. But so we talked a little bit about understanding global brands and all that. I want to talk a little bit about like how it relates to how your role affects. How do you affect culture? How do you keep this far flung worldwide group of people that you manage on any type of semblance of same page? Like, how do you do that? How do you approach as a leader? How do you begin?
I think it's the way that I think about it is almost like its own brand, and the way that you would, manage a brand, it's consistency. I know I've harped on that, but it's consistent messaging. As a leader, it's being transparent. It's making sure that everybody's on the same page and hammering in the same ideas. I have, my quips as a leader of things that I say all the time. And I think if you were to talk to most of my top leaders, they would say the same exact quotes. So it's that like consistency of messaging, clarity, transparency. And it starts from the top down. So, I always say, I want this to be a team that I want to be a part of. So that's right, wrong, or otherwise, we drive culture to what I think is right and bring people together in a way that we think is right. And I think that it works. It works. And, we've got a lot of communications that go out, a lot of town halls, a lot of one-on-one coffee chats around the world. And our teams love it. They like to see themselves in other parts of the world too.
How do you make the most out of okay, so you're going to you have a Toronto office?
We do have a Toronto office.
So when you go to the Toronto office,
yes.
How do you make the most of your time there? Like, how do you plan your agenda in a way that it's not because here's an interesting thing that I've found is return to office if you're part-time.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, the days that we're in office, I consider them like my social days.
Totally.
I don't know that I'm going to get a lot of deep
totally
done today because these are the days that we're going to interface and we're going to have important meetings. And I'm sure that it's largely that, or partly that, when you go and see people in real life that you don't, see all that often. So how do you make sure that it's a productive time?
I don't take any calls when I'm there for the same exact reason that you said. If you're in office, let's be in office. So I try to schedule no calls. And I usually do one internal day and one client day too, no matter where I'm going. And so it's, a lot of internal planning time and time together. And then we always do a fun outing. Got to do an outing of some kind. So whether it's, drinks at the office, bowling, fill in the blank on fun activity, but something that just brings people together a little bit more casually.
How have you felt it's been, because you don't have a dedicated office here?
No.
Right?
Don't.
How have you adjusted personally to that type of lifestyle?
I think that once we got through COVID times and, that just sticky moment, I think I find remote work fine. I'm still the person that was, the fun committee, the culture club, all of that kind of stuff when I was in an office. So I think I more just channeled that energy of planning stuff in the office to just being remote, honestly. And I think if it's important to you to connect with people, you'll figure out a way to do it in a way that's meaningful instead of forced. I was looking back at some memes the other day that were remember when we were in COVID and there was a magician and a town hall and there was this and they were just trying so hard to create space for people, which you get during that time. It was really challenging, but I think that when it's authentic and you care, that people feel that too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's really well said. I remember, and it's funny because it's when you're a company of 40, we're just trying all kinds of weird shit. Remember my dad showed up on a happy hour once because he was at my house of just come to the virtual happy hour, and they kept talking. I had to mute him. It was pretty good. We never had the gist. We did cribs tours. We did
yeah.
Here's a skill that you have that you want to show off.
Yeah.
I did a lecture on collecting baseball cards.
That's funny. And now that's a different lifetime ago, right?
It was a different lifetime ago. But I think what you said about if you want to connect with people, you're going to figure out a way to do it. And I think I think everybody feels I don't know. I feel like a lot of people just feel they're overscheduled, they're busy, they're whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does mean a lot when you're able to make the time to connect with somebody.
Absolutely.
Also purposeful to be like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like there's all kinds of shit going on in my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to have this Tuesday, 2 hours of drinks or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it goes both ways, right? Like if it's, how do you balance it all? It's like if it's important, you do it. It's, maybe you scale back on work a little bit when your son's graduating from high school.
Sure.
Maybe you dial up when he leaves, those kinds of things that are moments in your life, like people with infants, very challenging to make those things happen. But if it's important to you, you'll figure out a different way to do things, I think. So
yeah. And I think that
get creative.
And I've experienced that firsthand with my daughter being like 1 during COVID. Yeah. So it was like, that was a blessing in a lot of ways because I got to spend more time with her.
Absolutely.
Now, like the understanding of how there was much more like grace given to how people work. And I feel like a lot of that has carried over where it's like, you can kind of figure out, like, I'm an early morning person. I figured that out after like a little while.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but that means I might be done by 4 or 4:30 or 5 or whatever. And I think people give a little more grace than how it used to be, where it was like, well, shit, the boss is just sitting there. I can't walk past him and go home.
I totally agree.
So I do think that that's been a benefit.
Well, and for me, working in a global capacity, it means early morning calls. It means late evening calls. It means, traveling. So I think being able to give yourself some grace. I mean, I'm not a stickler of, like clocking in and clocking out because that just doesn't exist in the world that I operate in.
Right.
So figuring out like, I have meeting-free Fridays, and so I don't do any meetings, but that's a great day for me. I call it my get shit done day.
Yeah.
So that's my get shit done day, but it also means that I have more like one-on-one time. I can like workshop stuff with people. That's like a day that I'm pretty much totally available to be,
it's like your
to work.
hours.
Yeah. It's like office hours kind of. Yeah.
How do you, you have to be really purposeful then, because if you're on 6 a.m. calls, but you could also still be online at 9 p.m. How do you blog off? Like, what strategies do you have?
How do I log off?
Yeah. Or how do you not necessarily log off, but how do you mentally separate in a way that doesn't make you feel like you're just always available, I guess?
I have a precious moment of going to the gym, and it's a very weird time of the day because I am in a remote position.
Yeah.
But I go to the gym at 9:45 to 10:15 every day. It's a very weird spot because Europe's offline usually already. I've been online for a couple of hours on calls. West or East Coast is at lunch, and Asia's not on board yet. So it's like this really strange little time, and it's me and a lot of older people that go to the gym class during that one time. Because it's the silver people that can take the flexibility during the day. And honestly, when I'm home, it's that consistency is the mental space that I need to basically just hit pause and, mental support as much as it is, physical.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Yeah. I like I said, I'm an early morning person. So mine is exercise in the morning. Yeah. Because then it's like, if I'm done with that by 6, then I'm like, well, I don't know what else is going to happen today, but at least I did that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but it's got to be, I feel like it has to be fairly, I mean, you've been enough of a routine now, but do you find yourself having to remind yourself or are you just like set in it in such a way that you're like, I know when it's time to step away?
I think it's both a little bit. I mean, if I get really excited about a project or a thing, I mean, I think the other part is I'm super passionate about my team. I'm super passionate about the work, and I just, think I have the best team on the face of the planet. So it's very encouraging for me to want to spend as much time with them as possible. But there are some moments where you're like, okay, I need a fresh idea. It's time to, work from a different location. It's time to go to a coffee shop. It's time to, even sometimes when things are really stressful. A couple weeks ago, I just called my best friend from the 8th grade and was like, what are you doing? Well, it's kind of like I just needed a grounding moment. And she was telling me about her little kids and that kind of stuff. And she's a stay-at-home mom. And so it was just like, okay, that's right. Someone who's known you since the 8th grade is like,
I love it.
Get it together.
Yeah.
Fine. You're doing great.
They know all your skeletons.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. So then let's talk a little bit about, I want to find out about, because obviously you're interacting with a ton of people all over.
Yes.
younger people specifically,
Yeah.
not that are remote. Like how are you finding that in terms of interacting with people of first, second, third year in the business from a remote capacity? How's that gone?
It's different. It is definitely different. I mean, I think that they do a great job of protecting themselves and their time, which is amazing. It's something that we didn't grow up doing because we were in the office until, 2:00 in the morning
Right.
for pitches and that kind of stuff. So I think it's great that that generation is able to have, allowing themselves to actually like balance life and work in a different way. I think that, there's like the decisions of like turning on a camera. If you want to connect with people and you really want to have those meaningful relationships and conversations, that's the same as, walking into an office and then going and sitting alone all day. It's just a job. And that's fine too. So I think it's knowing how to interact with people and building to their preferences. But I will say, I think that like word of advice for that generation, it's if you're in a remote role, it's going to be really hard to get anywhere in a leadership position until you start turning on cameras, having a point of view, like really, in olden times when you would go into the office, in the year 2000, let's say, and you could just sit in a meeting room in the back. And now it's, you're not getting as many learning opportunities when you're remote as just like being a casual passerby. Just happen to be sitting in the conference room while there's a call happening. So I think it's a little bit of a disadvantage, but there's new ways of working that are coming from that we don't know yet, probably.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, especially for everyone else that's doing hybrid.
Yeah.
Or even, a little more than, 3 days, 4 days a week, because it depends on company size, depends on what team you're on, right? Depends on how your manager is. But, especially for creatives, it's really helpful to be in this room specifically for us and put shit up on the wall, because it just doesn't, the vibe is just not the same when you're going through a deck of 40 slides.
Oh yeah.
You're just like, I don't even remember what first 10 of those were.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's tough. And I think everyone's dealing with it in a different way. I mean, I think our advantage of being small is that it's a lot easier to gather people in that way quickly. But it's a balance, because like, especially as like parent, it's like, I want to be here for the culture, but I also want to get home and get dad. So it's, I don't know. Everyone's figured it out, but it'll be interesting to see how it continues to evolve.
My son went to a lot of work happy hours with me.
Yeah.
His daycare was right next to the office.
Maybe.
He was at the office a lot. And I think that's another thing that doesn't really happen as much anymore. We got glimpses into it in COVID of people like walking behind the scenes, but there was a whole generation, me included, at my dad's office of just kids around.
Yeah.
Just, your kid's sick, you bring him to the office.
Yeah.
You're someone, I don't know, gets in trouble, they go to the office.
Yeah, totally. My kids are all like, they want to come in here on weekends, which is hilarious. Yeah. But it's like,
you guys have good snacks. Is that what it is?
They have good snacks, and they live up long hauls so they can run. So like this weekend, you're doing doing stuff, and they're like, "Can we go to your office?" I'm like, "Sure, we'll get."
You're like, "Do I have to go to the office on the weekend?"
It'll be fun.
That's fun.
Let's talk a little bit about mistakes that have been made in your time. I'm sure there have been very few. With your great success and meteoric rise, but any mistakes that have that come to mind in your career, that maybe, would you like some more?
Sure.
That maybe you've taken something interesting away from, or just would like to share.
I have a story that I was thinking about, and it always sticks out in my mind, and it's from very, very early in my career, which I think a lot of people will connect with this the moment I tell it. We had some invitations for our client, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, for a very high-end exclusive event. And we got the invite. It was embossed. It was beautiful. It was all those things. Job jacket made its way around to to everybody.
Job jacket.
Everybody signed off on it. And sure enough, there was a typo on these like 300 invites that needed to go out the next day. And, embossed, beautiful, printed. And it was the client's name. It said visitators instead of visitors. Everybody looked at it. Everybody had every opportunity to sign off on the job jacket and did, and it still got done wrong. So I think there is the learning from that is certainly to double check everything. We've got spell check now. So there are some conveniences, but it is, like taking a second look, walking away from something, coming back with a fresh set of eyes. To your point about like, how do you take time away? Sometimes you do just go, I just need to close my eyes, look at something else, and then come back with another fresh set of eyes on this one. But yeah, so that was
Chores.
yeah. Never, every time I I think about it, it makes me cringe.
What ended up happening with?
Oh, well, our team leader ended up taking that invitation and putting it on his door and taping it to his door for about 3 weeks so everyone could see that fuck up.
Wow. So people didn't forget anytime soon.
Did not forget.
Well, I think what's interesting about that example is there's a lot of work going out the door all the time. And now it's, instead of a job jacket, it's whatever platform you use, or whatever several platforms you use, or whatever. And I do feel like there's a danger that it's become more disposable because of the digital nature of the way.
You're right.
I'm not advocating for the return of job jackets. Maybe I am from a nostalgia standpoint, but I do think that, there's something about the lack of tactileness to things that there's a danger.
Yeah.
I think that everyone's moving faster than ever now too.
And that's where I was going to, is like, you just are moving so fast. But at the same time, even if a typo, that was a printed example, but if there's a typo on a banner ad, you fix it and you retraffic.
Yeah. Right.
You can move really fast.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting.
Benefit of the moving fast, I suppose.
I think everyone's maybe had like a tough client experience that's trained them in a good way to be better about that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not everyone, but I know that I have. And I think that and the client used to say like, well, if you, and this was like typos in internal round one review or whatever. It's like, well, if you're fucking it up now, who's to say it's not going to get screwed up when it's a mechanical, or who's to say it's not going to get screwed up when it's on a bus or whatever?
Totally.
They're not wrong. So but it is hard because everyone's moving at the speed of light. So I think like for us, we're always just like, if you really need an answer and you need me to look at something, I think you have to just, goes back to communication. You have to come up and like Bird Box, like open my eyes and make me look at it and say like, do you approve this? And then you can finally you have that moment to actually look at it.
And I think there's also, maybe another like career learning for me is, I'm not a very organized person. I think a lot of people would find that like surprising. I know how to be prepared, but being prepared and being organized are two different things, I think. And so I had, managers my whole career, like, you gotta get more organized. You gotta get more organized. Then I realized you just have to surround yourself with organized people. That's their skill.
Yeah.
And then you can work well together. Like, think of it, accountant, project management, like how they work together. Like, there is a benefit of having someone who knows how to just keep the shit on the rails so that you can focus on the stuff that you're good at. And so for me, that was a learning of like, I don't have to be as organized as everybody else. I just need to figure out a way to help.
How long did it take you to realize that?
Oh, 25 years. No, I think, honestly, I think, probably 10 or 15 years of reviews of bosses of saying, gotta get more organized. Like, that's just not my brain doesn't operate that way. For me to get organized, look at spreadsheets, that kind of stuff, it takes me a lot of mental energy to really crack down and focus and ensure things are correct and all those kinds of things. And, everybody else, our media friends that feel the complete opposite and would cringe at probably something that takes me 2 seconds to look at and do differently. So, but once you, I think, assemble teams that have those right strengths, amazing. But
that's why advertising is like the ultimate team sport, right? I mean, you're never going to be able to just do it all by yourself well.
Totally.
It's interesting because it's a parallel with, and I've been creative partners with Vince Sullivan off and on for like more than 10 years, 3 different agencies. We worked at Kramer Kressel together, Ogilvy together. He went to school with Glenn at Portfolio School, and we're co-ECs here now. And I will say on the record, he's not the most organized person. I'm like, dude, we have this meeting tomorrow. Will you be? Oh yeah, okay, I'll be there. But he's so great at so many other things. So I think that's and that's creative degree. Obviously, there's so many strengths of our other departments, but I think for us, the two of us work really well because of that. Because he's he's the detail guy. He's the more of the craft guy.
Yeah.
Especially on the art side, and I bring other skills to the table. So that's why we complement each other.
Yeah.
Well, but so so it took you a little while to maybe come to peace with that.
I think so, and I think it was maybe not peace. Maybe it's more when the right people enter your life and you didn't know what you were missing.
Yes.
I'm thinking of an account executive that came into my life and was a totally different breed of an AE I had never worked with before, and he just kept me in line and was like, "Oh, you need to look at this email." He would print it out and put it on my chair and just say yes or no. Just give me a yes or no. But he found his own way of working with me, which then challenged me to go, okay, maybe if you're more organized, then you take these things and I focus here, and we can, be a really good pair. So he's also a really good account person in LA now.
Yeah. Well, it's global. It's a global role. You could bring him back. And you're in the office.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe his boss watches this. I don't know.
I mean, it's fascinating for me to talk about stuff like this because a small agency like ours is like job titles are job titles, and you have a role, but there's the freedom to flex is kind of as much as you want, which can be good, and it can be bad if you try too hard to do something that is not your skill set versus lean on the expert or lean on someone that has that soft skill. It's really interesting to know when to push on that and when not to. And I feel like I've learned a lot in 11 years of experimenting with that.
Well, and certainly, like, I think when I moved into a global agency and going from an independent agency to a network to a holding company, that certainly allowed me more resources to be able to have the flexibility to say, I'm not great at this, but I'm really good at this. So let's divide and conquer and then come together. So that might be an interesting insight there.
Totally.
I mean, when you're at an indie, you are doing it all. It's a startup. You're wearing all the hats. You're using the resources you have, which, to be fair, I think really great scrappy ideas come from that too. So
totally,
it's good on both sides.
Yeah. So then, as it relates to those type of varied skill sets, how do you hire with that in mind? Because hiring is such a, there's such a leap of faith involved in that. And that's the type of stuff that it's really hard to kind of probe.
I agree. I totally agree. I have this conversation
on that.
I think it's especially hard in a remote position to hire for people because you're going just based on, what you think in a resume. I think creatives at least have a benefit of having a book.
Sure.
Whereas account people and media people sometimes do, but it's challenging. So just be just have to have a good read, I guess. I don't know. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, you've probably done it enough to know the vibe is right. And there has to be a lot of instinct, right? And
yeah, I think so.
There's got to be gut.
Yeah. I think when you ask better questions, interview questions too. So I think that also comes with just experience.
Yeah.
So
totally. You probe for the right things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you looking forward to in the coming year of advertising? What are you excited about?
Opportunity. I'm looking forward to lots of new opportunity, new year, new refreshed sense of energy. I always love coming into January because it's a moment to reset. And, our industry is one that takes a pause over the holiday break. So that's always pretty nice to come back with new, renewed energy.
I love it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. It's been a really fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Nice to have you come into our office.
Well, this is wonderful. Enjoy our rosé. Yes.
Our rosé. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Join us next time on How I Fucked Up. We'll see you soon.